Hello, my name is John Macero, and I'm here tonight to introduce to you Kurt Millar, who is running for Precinct 2. Welcome, Kurt.
Hello.
So, Kurt, would you like to introduce yourself to the community and tell folks why you're running for the Precinct 2 councilor?
Sure. So I've been involved in the town now for multiple years. A lot of people have asked me why I'm running. I want to move Winthrop forward. I feel that some aspects of our town have been a little stagnant. So I started digging into the budget to try and find different line items that were questionable, and I've raised it up to the council. My family has been here for generations, both business owners, involved in town politics. My daughter went through the Winthrop Public Schools. I do have a son that lives down in Florida right now. I want Winthrop to become, that place where everybody comes to and says, I want to live here. I want to be here. I want to raise my family here and stay here for generations to come. So I feel it's important that I have that aspect of me that I put out when I talk to people, that we are a welcoming community and we want people to come here.
Great. So I have a list of questions I'm going to ask you, Kurt. And we're going to start with the first question. And as you know, that the town has a question on the ballot regarding a new fire station. So I guess I'm going to ask, do you support this initiative?
I definitely support the initiative. The fire department deserves to have a good station, a safe station, and a healthy station to every time they come back from a fire, they need to ensure that where their gear goes, it's allocated in the proper place. They have the proper apparatus that they need. We have to get custom apparatus to fit in some of our stations now. They do need it. They deserve it. They take care of everybody. They have so many calls just in a day, in a week, in a month's time that, I don't think people realize all the work that they put into it. So I support the initiative of a new fire station. After talking to people around town, there's a lot of concern with it, though, that the location.
Well, that's what I was going to get to. So
I apologize.
that's good.
Yep.
That's fine. You led me right into it. So you know the projected location that they're talking about.
Yes.
And so what are your thoughts on that?
So I love to keep what we can for historical value here in town. So I'm torn with taking down the Wadsworth building. It's not a true historical building listed as one, but it is in the area. I do wish there was a little bit more thought process put behind to the location. The money that for the debt exclusion that's going to go towards it, I feel, and looking around at other communities, they spend a lot less money, but we are kind of strapped for land in town, where it can go. I am back and forth on that specific location. And I think that's what's concerning about the money and the location for a lot of people in town.
So on that location, I just want to ask, from what I've been told was that the current owner of the building, of the Wadsworth building, was looking to sell regardless.
Yep.
Correct?
That's my understanding.
So we don't know, other than if the fire station were, if the town were to purchase that and put the fire station there, well, we know the fire station's there, correct?
Yep.
But if they don't put the fire station there, what could go there could be anything, correct? Because
Yes.
it's up to the landlord of who he wants to sell it to, and in that particular case. So I understand that. It's a tricky.
It is.
So.
But again, I'll say the fire department needs a station, and I know if we don't vote on this right now, it's just going to prolong
Sure.
the issues that they're having, and potentially the state, when they coming in and look at the properties, could actually condemn some or
Right. Well, and
put us in a worse position.
The fire trucks themselves are trying to get into the stations where, those original doors were for horse and buggy
Yep.
fire stations that came in. So I can certainly understand that. So let's move on to municipal budgets.
Yep.
Any experience with municipal budgets?
So I haven't been on any committees yet that involve it. I actually manage a $7 million budget at my company. So I have some budget experience. I'm always looking for cost-effective means for the business to perform. I deal with logistics with inventory for machines. So what I have to do is, I have a budget. If I go over the budget, I have to do a full root cause analysis as to why I went over and how it won't happen again. So when I look at the municipal budget and I've looked at line items, I've called out certain things like the ferry and the understanding of what goes behind. We actually had to pay a town employee to manage the ferry, and people don't understand that we're not really in the transportation business. So my push was not that we shouldn't have a ferry, it's that we shouldn't operate a ferry in town. It should be, MBTA, which is great now. They're leasing our boat. It's awesome. But then we would have to pay a pension on top of that and health care. So for me, the drive was not to say, no, we don't need a ferry. No, we don't need to take that additional cost and save that money to and utilize the person somewhere else where they were needed. Other line items, I just, went through, I looked at the water, municipal building water. I don't think for years anybody's really looked at that, but we found when I was looking through all the documents that we were negative on meters for town properties. Identified that the rink was actually, there was no meter on the rink, and they weren't paying a water bill, and they were an enterprise fund. So when I started digging through that, I also, recently started looking into E.B. Newton, and I've always felt that is an amazing building. And the maintenance for that building, that's also my background too, is preventive maintenance. I'm a maintenance planner. When I was looking at that property, we had to, Mr. Farino had to plead to get money to repair the clock tower. Now, when you have for-profit, non-profit, and town departments in there, the agreements should be that our for-profit should be paying market value of the space. The nonprofits, yes, almost every nonprofit in that building is supporting our children here, and they deserve to be in the building because I'm amazed at how much CASA has helped in this town. So those are things I looked at. I put it out again to the town council, and I think that also was where I'm a little different than the other two running on the council right now, is that I haven't heard them actually say, hey, look at this budget line item. I enjoy digging into it and looking at it. So, and the other thing I started looking into was more of the school budget too, for a better understanding of how all the money's allocated and where it's going to go to. So, municipal budget, I haven't been on a committee, but I dig into it a lot.
Okay, so, but as you've transitioned to me very well on this. So as a council member, you talked about the school budget. Well, what do you perceive your role related to the school district and the school budget as a council member?
So, digging into the budget line items in town, I do feel that our schools need more money. They need it. It shouldn't always be level funded every single year. We don't have language. We need more languages in the school. Music department. When I was in high school, I actually was in music. I did drum, I did football. I was well-rounded in everything. And for children not to be able to have the opportunity to have those, it's disheartening to me. So I will work my hardest to identify any kind of line items that we can say, let's shift this over to the school.
Okay, so that's an idea to try to help bring in some more revenue for the school or some more opportunity. Because I do know that, when you talk about schools' budgets, what people have to understand is that we have a lot of expenses as well that goes out. So we have, out-of-district expenses, all of these types of expenses that range from anywhere between, this past year, the state allowed them to go to 14% increase. Yep. Well, when you take that 14% increase and you go to a 2.5%, that all we can go up at 2.5%, you're already 11.5% in the hole. And so those are the types of things that make it a little difficult. So it would be good to see what people can do to try to help with that, other than that dreaded, people worry about that override.
Yes.
And that's, but there comes a point when you have to take a look at those as well, because you're only going up 2.5 of where you're at, so.
And the Chapter 70 money, even as a counselor, you can speak up, speak your mind, reach out to your state the legislators and say, hey, can you keep pushing this?
Right.
So where we're at right now, we went up, we started at $30 per child. We're up to 60 that was approved. And then the Massachusetts Municipal Association proposed $100 per child.
Okay.
And I think that is where we should be at, honestly. We don't have enough ESPs, special education programs. We don't have enough teachers. It's hard for us to retain a bunch of teachers here in town. So we need to push as a council to say we need help in our schools also.
Yeah, well, I totally agree with you on that. Speaking of schools, there's been a lot of discussion of the old middle school.
Yep.
Quite frankly, I can't even believe I'm still bringing it up about the old middle school. But what's your vision for the future of that site?
So a few years ago, we started a Facebook group called Vision and Sharing. And what we did was try and get some people in the community to come up with more ideas.
Okay.
So I know there's been multiple ideas proposed, like a hotel, micro units. I believe a Urazioni kind of complex also.
And that sits kind of right in your precinct, right? I mean,
It is. Yeah,
that
just
is-
outside, but it's there.
It's there. Right.
So I walk down the end of my street, and it's
It's
there.
there. Exactly.
So for me, I understand the need for the revenue that we want to try and get for it. So the proposal made by our council president right now, to a point it makes sense. But is that what the will of the people of the town really want? I understand the cost just to demolish the place and get everything out, 1.6 I believe it was that was stated, because of the asbestos and everything that potentially is in there. But we've almost spent that money just letting it sit there. So that's hard to bite off, just to think that we have spent all that money for so long.
But something has to be done.
Something does have to be done. I do like the proposal that was put there, but I'm also going to say sports complex that's privately owned, we don't know the long-term ramifications in a small town, how that could really affect us. I would definitely need more information, like a proposal, RPI or RPA.
Right. In that proposal, was it, and you can correct me, it was that they would be leasing it,
They would lease the property
but yet
from
they're
us.
going to do the work to put it all together.
From my understanding, the way it was laid out, yes.
Okay.
And that we would get time to utilize as a town in there, would be part of the request.
So if they didn't do that, is there anything that you would try or to look at from what from your Facebook time or listening or from
Yeah.
those areas that you would recommend that could go there?
I hear green space a lot. There's space down there that, we could clean up the corner of the middle school where, yes, I think putting a few more houses over there, that could get some revenue in for us. I think the amount of revenue that we're talking, that was discussed, it's a good amount of revenue. I don't see, my fear is that it's not going to happen, and what do we do with the property afterwards? We're stuck with it, right? So I don't have a true proposal. I want to hear more ideas. And the only reason I want to wait, because I also want to wait and see how the vote goes for the fire station.
Sure.
Now, we keep hearing, that area is not good for a fire station, but have we truly done a full investigation on that area? Could potentially be an okay, but there's also another concept of building another school there that I've heard that I think is actually a good idea, to move the fire station over to where the DPW is, take over that school, and then build a new school over where that is.
I hadn't heard that one.
And then you can have everything all together in one spot, your DPW, your fire department, your fire police station. That could potentially, and everybody's, oh, well, there's only one way in and out. There's not. The access road would finally be allowed. I guarantee that would happen. So that's a whole nother concept.
Yeah.
So I wouldn't say I definitely have an idea of what should go there. I'm still open for proposals, but I want to wait for the vote, because if the fire station gets shut down, maybe we got to start rethinking things.
Okay. Winthrop's initiated some additional fees over the past couple of years. One is the annual trash fee per household. How do you feel about the additional trash fee?
It's tough. I think people are being feed and property values going up, additional taxes. It's hard for people to take this. I've looked around at other communities. It's not uncommon for towns and cities to do this now. And people need to get a better understanding of why it's happening. You got to pay the workers for the company. They got to get paid. So there's that portion of our contract with them. But then there's a tipping fee that people aren't really truly understanding. That's where a lot of money is tied up, because the more we put in the trash, the more it costs us. And we are running out of places to put trash. So that's hard. And then when you have it in our budget, I've been a strong believer, hey, that's what we pay our taxes for.
Right.
It should be part of that. But then you start saying, school needs more money. This needs more money. And you start breaking it up and you're like, well, how are we going to do this? So the decision was made, make it an enterprise fund. And it's hard for people because you're on a budget. A lot of people in our town are on a budget. And it's a struggle for some. I believe the last I checked, the average income in town was between 65 and 72,000 a year. You can't buy a home in Winthrop right now the way it is that way.
No.
So getting these additional fees, it's hard for me to push for something like that. I'd want to try and find an alternative. But seeing how our trash is in our town, our whole country, the world is, buy it and throw it away. Yeah. So we got to start rethinking that process.
Yeah, I know they've tried to, over the course of the year as well, they've divvied up the payments, so you pay one
Quarterly.
payment is it quarterly or is it a half year?
Half year.
That's what I
Sorry.
thought. And so it's, you'll get it in July, and then you'll get it in January.
Yes.
And I'm hopeful that helps people, because when you get that, I own a 2-family, so therefore, mine's double
Yep.
of what you would have there. But
I know they're working on trying to balance it out too for those, who might have one trash bag a week.
right.
I mean, is it really? I'll
And
call it
came
fair.
And they came up with now if you have more trash, you have to go and buy a certain bag
Yes.
that you would put that in, so
Yep.
that they would take it. So.
A lot of communities have that too. But then again, if you think about it, you're adding to the tonnage again, which
Right.
costs more for the town, and we got to drive that down.
Well, you talked a little about, you brought up water earlier, and our water rates always seem to be a hot issue.
Yep.
And I can always tell when the water bill's coming before I even get it. I'll be on Facebook, and boom, there it comes out. Everybody's talking about it. And so I know that within the next 2 days, I'm going to see my water bill. But do you have any recommendations regarding our current rates, or how to help defray any additional costs? I know that's, you're one person, but I'm just curious for the, because it seems that keeps increasing.
So I know with our infrastructure in town, it's old and it needs to be done. We have no choice. I think after a couple of years, once we get all the work done, it's again a hard thing to bite, seeing that budget. Understanding what the true cost of everything is with all the money we've had to borrow. The average person, I think, doesn't dig into that budget to say, oh, wow, we spend that much just to have all this infrastructure done. But it's a necessity for us. The other thing is, which I've been looking into, is the actual breakdown of how the DPW pays everybody. So we know the DPW is shorthanded. There are open spots in the budget for people. But what's a little misunderstood is when you have one DPW worker, it's an enterprise fund. You're not really supposed to go back and forth with everybody. We have no choice. But looking at the line item for payroll for that, I do tend to question what line items are tied into that payroll. And is there a way we can really look at that and determine, is it, just a line item that isn't fully being utilized, and the whole budget it's been audited and looked at, but I think there should be more put out to the people of the town so they better understand why we're in the scenario. Because
So some more
it's not going to go
communication.
back. And I believe it's going to go up again.
Yeah.
So,
It's a good point on the communication part, because I think we tend to we know when it's water bill time, right?
Yep.
Every time it's boom, everybody's jumping and upset about the bill and stuff, and then it's more of a defense mechanism of the council to have to defend what's happening as opposed to being a little more proactive.
yep.
So if you're elected, you're 1 out of 9 people on that council. What steps and strategies will you take to get your initiatives passed within the council?
So I'm a very open person. I like being transparent about my thoughts. I would always involve the entire council. I will not take one person at a time, another person at a time, and talk to them sidebarring. I don't think that's the right way to do it. Open communication with every councilor out in the open during a meeting. Identify what motions we can put forward. And that would be my main, I wouldn't even call it a strategy. I just feel the openness of being in the meeting and talking about it is where it should happen. It should never happen outside the meeting. So I know it happens different ways on different committees, but I don't like doing anything sidebar at all.
But are you able to find yourself, how do you handle compromise?
I'm actually a lot of people don't realize it, but I can be very, with my family, they all know I'll have my thought process, and then I have to take a step back a second and listen. Okay. So what I've done, just being on the Charter Ordinance Committee, we had a vast difference in people who were on it. And it is that understanding of being able to not only listen, but to hear what the point is that they're trying to get to. So I tend to actually question the question that they're asking me so I have a better understanding. I'll repeat back, this is what I hear you saying to me, and this is what I'm understanding. Because sometimes even when you're talking to somebody, you don't get the full point. You think you do, but you don't. So with the council, you'll have that, where somebody's trying to give you, a thought or a different point of view. Being able to step back and go, you know what? I need to listen and hear what they're trying to say to me, because it might be a good compromise what I'm trying to put forward and what they're trying to put forward, and we can find the middle road right down to get to a better conclusion. So over the years, I've learned how to do that. I have to do that at work with my job. I'm a servant leader. I have to listen to the employees and work with them to get the best outcome we possibly can, because one person isn't always the best. It's when you have a group.
Thank you. Let's see, we got a couple minutes left. We got about 5 minutes, so I just want to move us along on the thing. So you talk a lot about communication. What kind of tools would you use to communicate with the residents?
So I am a huge Zoom person right now. I feel that every policy-making board should be on Zoom. There are a lot of people in town who are disabled, who can't make it to meetings, who are at work at that time. I feel that policy-making boards every board is important, every committee is important, but getting the message out, we should take every avenue possible to be able to let our people of our town know what's going on. And with our technology, we have it. We should utilize it. So that's one thing. Zoom is huge. I believe it's underutilized. The other thing would be I would, on a regular drumbeat, have meetings with my precinct, but all are welcome. I think that's great when I've seen some of the councilors do it, and you don't always get your precinct there, and I think that's beneficial. The open lines of communication, I know it costs a lot of money to send mailers out, and I don't think people in town realize that. I think it's about $3,000 a mailing.
Wow.
That's not totally effective to do anymore, but for specific topics, yes. But communication-wise, I feel Zoom, additional meetings, regular drumbeat with meet your precinct counselor, talk to them. on an open discussion, not a, any kind of full agenda, because you need to hear what everybody has to say.
Well, and I mean, Zoom is a great tool. So,
is.
I mean, people are, when you get an opportunity to have people meet, it seems, we did it so much during COVID. Why aren't we continuing it? That would be my question of why aren't we doing those types of things? Because then you can really hear from people.
Yep.
So, I've got a question I want to ask here. I'd like you to it's just 3 words now. 3 words that best describe you, and then why.
All right. I thought this through,
Okay.
kind of. Mm-hmm. So, I think courage, committed, and the last one would be, it was a toss-up. Courage, committed, and I was gonna say, let's do, I got stuck.
That's
I'm kind
okay.
of torn
So-
between the 2 words.
That's
so-
okay. So courage and committed. Why would you say courage and committed?
Well, because I don't stick to the status quo.
Okay.
I don't feel that everything has to remain the same all the time. And I don't mind calling it out.
Okay.
Just with diving into the budget, it's hard sometimes for people to stand up and, say, why is this way? And it takes a lot to step up and do that.
Great.
And in this, going on to the council, it does take courage. It takes a lot because you can, get it from all different sides and people not happy with you. And sometimes you need that courage just to sit back and let people release what they're feeling inside.
That's true.
So the committed part is actually, I've been committed. I made a promise last time I ran, if I didn't make it on the council, that I would stick with the council, and I held on to that promise. And I went on the board of license. I'm on the board of license now. I was put on it, and then I was on 2 rounds of the Charter Ordinance Review Committee. One was during COVID, so we didn't get to finish it all. But that's my commitment to the town. I have not stopped since, I started campaigning the first time around. I still haven't stopped since.
Okay. So what I'm going to do here, I'm going to give you an opportunity to talk to our Winthrop residents and have a closing statement.
Okay, I would like to earn everybody's vote in Precinct 2. I and also appreciate the support from the entire town. I am currently one of the only candidates who will not take any donations to my campaign. And I'm driving that point because I feel the people of the town have already been taxed enough, feed enough, and I feel guilty even taking a dime from anybody for this. I've shown over the past few years that I am fully committed to this town, and I want to move the town forward in a positive manner, and I'm willing to do what it'll take.
Thank you, Kurt. I want to thank you all for watching, and I also want to remind you all that Election Day is November 7th, so don't forget to get out and vote. And on November 7th at 7:30 that evening, I, along with Eric Gaynor, will be doing an election night recap. So we hope you'll join us. Thank you. Welcome back. And now I have our second candidate who's running for Precinct 2 Council. He's seeking re-election, Mr. John Munson.
Hi there, John. How are you?
I'm good. How you doing?
Right back at the same place we were 4 years ago.
That's right. John, if you want to take a moment and tell people why you're running for and seeking for re-election.
Well, as you guys probably know by now, I am seeking re-election for Precinct 2, and I would love your vote, but I would like to have earned it over these last 2 years. If you don't know me by now, just a quick background. I've been living here for 20 years. I'm married with 2 children in the school system. One has graduated from high school and is now in college at Salem State, but my son is still a sophomore. And so I have a small business here. My sister and her family live here. My parents live here. My brother's around the corner in Beachmont. So I have a lot of vested interests in this town. But more so than anything, I'm just looking to continue what I've started. There's some major decisions that are looming for this town, the firehouse, the old middle school. And basically, I just want to keep it a safe, wonderful place to be. And I've enjoyed being here, and I hope to continue to be here for as long as possible. And I think that just having a nice, reasonable, sensible, experienced voice on the council is why I'm running for re-election.
Thank you, John. Your son's in college already, you're right. 4 years ago, he was just starting high school, I think.
Yeah.
Or right there.
My
right
daughter,
before.
Sophia, is a freshman at Salem State.
Oh, your daughter,
Owen's still
okay.
a sophomore
Wow, okay.
at Winthrop.
Time does fly.
It does.
It does fly. So you may have just touched upon it right here. The town has a question on the ballot regarding a new fire station. Mm-hmm. Where are you on this initiative?
Well, as you probably know, we unanimously supported it.
Okay.
So the councilors are in unison in this. They believe that through a process of over 5 years of looking for one, we have come up with the best solution. Is it a perfect solution? By no means. Wadsworth Building is a beautiful old building, and there are some active, vibrant businesses there. But as part of an eminent domain friendly taking, every business would be taken care of. And we've already, Anthony Marino, should I say, the town manager, has worked very hard to make sure that everyone is accounted for, and there's some really good packages out there. So I don't feel bad at all about the relocation. I feel like everyone has been taken care of. As far as the location, there's a lot of people that are talking about the old middle school. I think that the old middle school is an opportunity. It's one of the last puzzle pieces in Winthrop. It's an opportunity to sell that property or to develop it where it can generate revenue. If we replace it with the firehouse, we actually are taking an opportunity cost that's pretty big. We're replacing a revenue stream with an expense. And so, in my opinion, this is a very safe choice. It's at the top of a hill. There's never going to be any flooding here. It was strategically chosen being on Winthrop Street, where it's actually a great cut through across both sides of town. They can get to any location in Winthrop within 5.5 minutes. And I think that with the way Scott Wiley speaks about his guys and the staff, I think it's our duty to protect the firemen that are protecting us. And as of right now, it's not just wish or a wish list, it's a necessity to get a new building in place. This isn't a perfect solution, but it's a very good one, and I'm in support of it.
And you know, something that it's interesting because the person who owns Wadsworth Building, you know, if the town doesn't purchase it, it sounds like he's selling it regardless. And so that could, you don't know what you're going to have put in there, correct?
We can guess that it'll
Right.
most likely not be an office building with retail downstairs. It'll most likely be sold to the highest bidder, which is basically housing. Right. So it's going to be more housing right
And
there.
so
at
the
top of hill.
people that are in there currently would be displaced
Either way.
either way.
Except with
But-
us, we're covering their costs, making the transition as seamless as possible. As of right now, I think every business has been accounted for.
Okay.
So I think we're in good hands. We would never do, being a small business owner, I would never do something rash or detrimental to another small business without having some nice plan Bs in place.
Thank you. So you've been on the council for the last 2 years?
Almost 2
Almost
years.
2
It'll be,
right.
in January, it'll be 2.
So you've had a little experience with municipal budgets, because I wanted to ask, what is your experience with those municipal budgets, and what have you learned from it, I guess would be my question to you.
Well, I mean, we've gone over it in granular detail at some of those subcommittee meetings. I've been just volunteered to kind of, in addition to just being a town councilor where you actually are presented a budget, I've gone to a lot of the FinCom meetings, and I've reviewed the budget at length. I've asked some of the people in the accounting office, annoyingly so sometimes, those questions, but I have gotten to understand both the revenue side and the expense side. You know, and we have only so many revenue streams. We're not a big town, let alone city, where we have a big business revenue or industrial revenue. We're basically just a property tax revenue is our number one number one revenue generator, and outside of that is like state aid. So we really don't have a lot of revenue coming in other than those two major things. We have some fees, et cetera, et cetera. And then the expenses, we are, 60% of our budget goes to the school. And then a lot of them goes from there, it goes to fire, well, it goes police, fire, DPW, and so you really get to understand how the whole budget works. And then I actually understand how the enterprise funds work. And I've really enjoyed the process of understanding it. And after 2 years, I feel like I have a good grasp on it. And you can't move money without taking from something to replace something else. So you have to, by law, always be balanced. So I feel like I'm very comfortable with it.
Okay. So as the council member, and you just touched upon that as well, you talked about school budgets. Mm-hmm. So let's talk about how you, and perhaps what your role has been as you perceive, and what's related to the school district and the school budget. Because you talked, it's 60%.
Yeah.
So how do you feel your role as a council member is with the school budget?
I mean, we do very little actually working with the school committee. We basically help get the school committee appointed or elected, but in essence, we let the school committee do their work. And we don't really have much say in the ins and outs. They hire the superintendent. Lisa Howard's doing a great job. But in essence, as a town councilor and as a citizen, I'm really trying to get as much money for that school as possible. I mean, I feel for that school. I mean, I'm very lucky to have two kids that have gone pretty much through the whole school system from start to finish. And so I know where the strengths and weaknesses are, and I feel as though Lisa's trying so hard to kind of get as much money as possible to keep a level service. And I feel bad that it has to be just a level service. Why not strive for an excellent schools from top to bottom? We are blessed that we have all new schools. We have a great environment for kids to grow up in and to learn a lot from. I just would love to be able to, as both a citizen and as a counselor, to give them as much as possible so that they can really be above and beyond just level service.
And as I was talking, being a superintendent and understanding that, we carry that 2.5%. However, the bills aren't coming in under 2.5%.
No.
I'm sure you're well aware of
Yeah.
that. And this past year, 14% was allowed for out-of-district schools to go to 14% increase. So when they went to 14% increase, that took 11.5% right off of our budget. So
It doesn't,
yes.
yeah. The math doesn't always add up. When we have that 2.5 proposition override, there's really it's really a uphill battle for a lot of municipalities.
Well, I think at its time, and I remember I disagreed very vehemently with my dad, but I was just a high school senior in '81, who said, "Oh, we're going to support this. I got to support this." I understand when I look back at why, because at that point they could just do anything.
Right.
But I think we went from one extreme to the other extreme, and we're still kind of stuck in that other extreme. And city and towns like Winthrop and Melrose and other groups, Stoneham, they're suffering.
Yeah.
So-
I mean, it probably will be brought up again, but when you talk about inflation at 8 and 10% over the course of the year, and you're forced to stay within a 2.5%, I mean, you're looking at problems, and so something has to, add up, and so, that's where we end up with fees, and where we normally wouldn't, like school, like sports fees, where they normally weren't there, so, would I like it so that it was all paid for as part of your taxes as a homeowner? Yeah. But sometimes you can't have that all because of the rules and the 2.5.
So let's talk about the fees, because you bring, since we're talking
Yeah,
about
we're
it,
already on that.
they've initiated some additional fees through the past couple of years, and of course one has been the annual trash fee.
Right.
And I always know when they're talking about trash fees, because usually I know that's coming because I'll see it on Facebook.
Yeah.
Through the mail. But I mean, how do you feel about it?
I mean, it's $160. So let's not make a capital case about $160 when, like we said before, with inflation being upward 8 to 10%, and we're forced to keep our taxes at 2.5%, we actually had to, because of the assessed values of our homes in this town, we had to reduce the tax rate just so that we wouldn't go up above 2.5%. If we were able to keep our tax rate, we would have made plenty of money to cover those expenses for trash. But because of the law that we have set for ourselves, we can't. So that's where those expenses come up. So, if you think about it, if you would rather not have any new fees, and there are some people that are fighting, diametrically against this. if you were really that against $160, what does that add up to ultimately? If no one paid that $160, that means that $700,000 would have to come off somewhere else on the budget. When you think about the majority of our budget is personnel, that means jobs. That means teachers, firefighters, police, DPW. Someone would need to be cut in multiple jobs. $700,000, I don't know if you could do an average salary, but that's well over 12 jobs being cut. So what's a $160 over the course of a year to get your trash picked up every week? I mean, some of these things are out of our control as well. The cost of trash has gone up precipitously, and China stopped taking recycling. It used to be a profitable section to offer our recycling. It's not there anymore. Maybe it'll come around and we can get it back off, and I don't think that there's anything off the table on that regard. I'd love to see that happen. But for the time being, it's an understandable expense, and it's actually, if you look at around the state, it's not that abnormal at all to have those fees. It's actually quite common.
And I noticed that too this past year, they're splitting it.
Right, into two, so it's even more digestible.
Right. So you talked about it at the very beginning, the old middle school.
Yep.
And I'm kind of surprised we're still talking about the old middle school.
Yep.
But what is your vision for the future of this site?
Well, it really doesn't matter what my vision is. I do have some ideas. I've had some ideas for the years, and actually, believe it or not, that was the catalyst that got me to be in the town council. Okay. I was tired of seeing a vacant building costing the town thousands of dollars every year, and I couldn't hear myself complain about it anymore. So I didn't shut up. I needed to put up, and so that's why I became a town councilor. So here we are, still talking about it. And so it is a complicated issue. I think that there's some ideas that have been worked through. I mean, I think that in 2017, there was some great planning going on, a lot of input from the town. I think there were some great ideas presented that I would love to see be represented. Ultimately, what I see for a vision is having a very open process, not just a unilateral, one idea here, take it or leave it kind of thing, where we're actually taking an RFI that was given to us from another town and just repurposing it for that same developer to do the same thing in our town, but to make it broad. Because the truth of the matter is developers have experience, they have imagination, they have very wealthy people doing very smart things. Let's let them propose ideas to us, and as a council and as a town, use the people's input and the town council's filter to be able to choose the best choice that's presented to us. So that's my vision. If it were up to me, at one point I thought hotel, and then my wife and my mother-in-law were like, are you crazy? We don't want a hotel. And then but the truth of the matter is I would love to see a community center. We need to see that a great rink, stay in town, so hockey towns, a Ruzioni town. And then also, ultimately, we're really lacking in the housing, and we need to be responsible in that regard. It can't be just any kind of housing. We have a traffic problem, we have a parking problem. So it has to be with compromises that accommodate for these problems that we have. So we have needs, and we need to fulfill them.
Okay. So let's just hold on. Water rates.
Water rates.
So and I know that we had just talked about the other fees and stuff. What's interesting is in Winthrop, you know when the water rates go out, because it's all of a sudden it's a Facebook topic everywhere, right?
Yeah.
It's a hot issue, but do you have any recommendations regarding our current rates, or how we can defray, or any of these additional increases?
I do, and it is tough, but we inherited an old problem. We settled on an agreement, but either way, whatever we had handed to us, I think the important thing is what we can do now. And I think that we just recently had a water audit that revealed $1 million in water loss per year. Wow. $1 million. If you were able to save even half of that, you would actually cut our water rates down tremendously. So I think that the solution to reducing the water rates is resolving that water loss. The audit said something along the lines of 17 different water leaks all around the water system. So instead of just, in my opinion, it makes more sense to handle the problem than to do a routine water main replacement. It seems like you take care of the problem first, and then you can go ahead and continue the routine. And that's where I think that, and also the meters. If we're updating the meters and making sure that everyone's usage of water is metered and monitored, we just found out that the rink was never actually being metered. And then they were doing an Eruzione, that Eruzione rink is actually using something like 250 gallons per Zamboni. So that's never been measured. And then now we finally got it. You got a water meter there. The enterprise is going to be responsible for that. There's some other things like that we can find some accountability. But just updating the meters in every home, I know that we can expedite that. We can make that faster. We can solve the water leaks problem. We just had some water mains break recently, and we had some water brownage and so forth. Let's take care of that first, and then we can actually start recouping some of that cost, and then we can maybe save some and reduce that rate.
I wasn't aware of the audit on what that found.
It was a headliner, and it was but it was quickly kind of addressed, and it kind of moved on. But the problem's still there. And while we are still replacing a lot of water main, and we've done a great job, and the DPW has done a fantastic job of aggressively, ahead of schedule, replacing water mains, we have not actually tackled some of the actual leaks. And I think that would just take a water company like we already have to find those leaks through some scoping and what have you, and then address them first.
Okay.
I'm not an engineer, but sometimes you put out the fire, so to speak, first, and then you can go ahead and do maintenance.
Sure. So earlier you had addressed the problems of revenue, right? So Winthrop seems to have a revenue issue. You talked about it. And you may have even skimmed a little of it, but what are some of the ideas you bring to the table maybe for the town to earn more revenue? Well,
I think Jim Lettieri's idea of having that sports complex has been toyed around with that 125,000 that he also proposed some townhouses right on the edge of Waldemar on the slope going down. So that would generate close to $200,000 a year in revenue at the old middle school site. There's a possibility if we were to just get more housing near, more housing and like condos, not necessarily apartments, so that we're getting the right kind of people in here. I think that we could actually generate more. There also needs to be some understanding that we are going to develop more in this city. We're actually, as far as population growth, we're one of the slowest in all of the North Shore and the whole eastern seaboard of Massachusetts in terms of population growth. If you look over the decades, we actually haven't changed that much. We actually retracted, believe it or not. So it's not necessarily, the planning board controls a lot of those developments. We just need to make sure that the proposed developments provide for a reasonable amount of parking and traffic congestion doesn't get out of control. So I think that, you put key developments in good locations. I think Veterans, where overlooking the golf course would be lovely. That area where, Shirley extends, that would be a fantastic location for a couple of developments. Just intelligent decisions that you don't go overboard and have everything becoming a 3 or 4 level house or building, but just being basically cautious development is going to be a good revenue generator in addition to the old middle school site.
So now you've been elected. I mean, you were appointed.
Appointed, yeah.
You were appointed by the town council. And so, but you realize you're one person out of 9
right.
in that town council. And you might have some passionate ideas that you want to get through.
Right.
So talk to me about what are your strategies, or how do you go about getting your initiatives passed?
Well, I think one of the reasons why I think I'm good for this position is because I have a relationship with everybody. I have a working relationship and a friendship. And when I said in my letter to the editor a while back, how much I enjoy this position. It's not a joke. It's not fake. I really love working with my fellow councilors. Every single one of them to me is a friend, and I respect them on a professional level as well. So I'm one of those guys that doesn't stick to just one group. I'm open to all ideas and to all people. And so I think being kind of a centrist and that middle child that kind of works together to find solutions will help me get things accomplished. That's just my nature. And I was on a jury not too long ago. It was a hung jury. Who was there convincing those last two people to come to the other side? It's just what I do. It's just I find common ground and I get people to see along the same lines. I'm looking forward to getting a lot accomplished in the next couple of years. And if I get elected, I will do so.
And how have you learned the art of compromise on that board?
Well, I am married successfully for 20 years, so yes, compromise is part of the game.
Well, it seems, when you look at the national and all of this, that it's like, nope, this is my way or no way. And so,
yeah, that partisan politics has really been self-defeating, quite frankly.
So that's why I ask, when people who are coming on, are they going to be able to work together and compromise with what they're doing for the decision?
I mean, I already have a relationship with Suzanne Swope, and John DeRoss and I are quite friendly. He's a great guy. I'm looking forward to working with them. And then as far as Max and Todd, I'm friends with both of them. I've gotten to know Max recently, and I think he is a political natural. He is just, I think he'll be great. I think Todd's got a lot of great ideas. He's a little abrasive to work with, but I would work with him as well. So I'm willing to work with whoever's there. And I don't think that we have a lot of time for inaction and more studies. I think we need to get some public hearings, some community input, get an RFP out there, and move forward with the old middle school redevelopment as soon as possible. And then I also think the firehouse, if it doesn't pass now, it's going to be represented probably at the same location within a year based on what I've been hearing from Chief Wiley and the Town Council President Jim. So we are going to make big things happen in the near future. And that's part of that is just working together as a team.
Okay. So communication, it's huge, right? Especially in your role.
Yeah.
So what communication tools have you used, or what have you done since you've been elected? Appointed.
Appointed.
As the councilor for Precinct 2.
I do think that Winthrop's got a communication problem. Okay. I'm not going to, I think that what happens is it becomes like there's a vacuum. What happens is someone sends an email and it goes into a group of the town council and no one really knows who should respond or who shouldn't. If it's my precinct and it's my constituent, I take it. Without question, without doubt. But there's a kind of a vacuum of communication. We have gotten better since Tony's been on board. That town manager's blog has become much more informative and it's been consistent. And Larissa and Tony do a fantastic job with that. So I think that anyone that is actually looking for information should definitely subscribe to that. The transcript is a reliable form of communication as well. But to me, it's not enough. From what I've said just in those few words, it's only the information that's being shared is only going to people that are looking for it. And I think that's a problem. I think that people that aren't necessarily active in local politics should be in the know. I think information should be shared regularly through the forms of, with our water bill, with our real estate property tax bill, with our, with all forms of communication to the public, there should be information being shared with what's going on in the town. And I think that's another form of communication. I will say one last thing about Facebook and social media. It's a natural tendency to avoid it. What happens is you're on it as a citizen, but then when you're as a town councilor, you're scared because you're going to get lynched and mobbed, and if you actually say the wrong thing, it's a dangerous platform to kind of just go ahead and throw whatever, But there's so much misinformation on social media that it's a crying shame, and I think there should be someone ready to kind of handle that. It's too much for any one person to watch all the commentary and to make sure that no misinformation is being shared. But maybe as a group we could handle it. Ambassadors to the community. I don't know, but no, it's not enough.
So this question I always like to ask. It's really more of a personal to you. I'd like to know 3 words that best describe you and why.
I've been using, I mean, it's a tough one because, I mean, I consider myself dynamic.
Okay,
So,
that's one.
all right. I think experienced now that I've been on the council for 2 years, but I'm also a director of research where my job was to synthesize information and come out with solutions and reports and presentations. So that is a big one. So I'm a communicator or a synthesizer, I guess, but experience essentially. And then inclusive.
Okay.
But I think reasonable has to be thrown in there because I don't jump the gun. I try to listen to everybody. I try to make, after getting all the information, an analytical and compassionate choice. That to me is reasonable. So I would say experienced, reasonable, and inclusive. Because I'm a world citizen. I was born in Chicago. I've lived in Maine most of my life, but my parents are from all over the planet. We've traveled the world. I see everyone's point of view, and I feel like everyone should be cared for and kindness should be shown.
Thank you. So at this time, I'd like to give you an opportunity to tell your residents why they should vote for you.
Precinct 2 and the rest of Winthrop, don't we live in an awesome town? That's the way I want to keep it. I want to make sure that this town remains a great place for kids to grow up, for families to raise their kids, for business owners to run their businesses, for anyone to just live peacefully and comfortably. We're surrounded by a beautiful ocean. We've got safe streets. And I want to keep it that way. Safety is my top priority. And that means, like, if you're walking to school as a kid, if you're walking or biking around town on Winthrop Shore Drive, if you're driving, you want to feel safe. I want safety to be our #1 priority, and that includes climate resiliency too. I've been on the council now for 2 years. I know what a councilor should and can do. I am going to ask you for your vote on November 7th so that we can finish what we started and make this town what it is and will continue to be a great place to live. Thank you.
Thank you, John.
Thank you, John.
And just a reminder to everyone, I just want to remind everybody it is November 7th that you can come out and vote. Make sure that you do. Also on November 7th at 7:30, I and Eric Gaynor will host election results show, so we hope that you will tune in. Thank you, and we'll be back shortly.
Thanks.
Welcome back. And now I'm here with Mark Chapdelaine, our third candidate running for Precinct 2. Welcome, Mark.
Thanks for having me.
Mark, would you like to take a moment and introduce yourself to the community and tell them why you're running?
Sure. My name is Mark Chapdelaine. I'm a resident of Emerson Road in Precinct 2, and I've lived in Winthrop since 2011 with my wife Christina and our 3 kids. They're aged 5, 7, and 9. And I'm running because I think what we do in the next 4 years is going to impact the lives of the people of Winthrop for the next 40 years. And I think that my experience and my background will help me make great decisions, or the right decisions, that can help keep moving our town forward.
Thank you, Mark. So, Mark, one of the big questions right now on the ballot is regarding the new fire station. Do you support this initiative?
I do. When I first learned about it, I had a lot of questions about it, and I was frankly against it. Okay. I didn't think there was a need, and I thought the cost was just too high. I took the opportunity to tour the 2 fire stations, and that changed my mind significantly. In doing so, I saw how outdated and how far past their lifespan these buildings were. The way the apparatuses come in, the way the gear is stored and decontaminated, and mainly where we're asking our firefighters to live and sleep. Extremely outdated, and they're not buildings that can be restored. So as time went and I thought more about it, having seen these fire stations, the need was clear. The next question was the cost. Why so much money? How do we get to $40 million? And the reality is the cost to build a building like this goes up about 8 to 10% every year. So had we done it 10 years ago, it would have been significantly less. This cost and the way this cost is going to be borne upon the taxpayers, it's still weighs on me. It's still a problem, and I think it really does affect how people are going to be able to continue to pay one more tax, one more bill that people are going to get stuck paying. And that's something that I think we can take a lot of steps to try to defray a bit. I do think that MWRA, their contract is up in June of 2025. I think they should be our partner in this. I think if this does pass, and we are faced with this debt exclusion and going to the tax rolls, when we go to negotiate with the MWRA, and their contract's simple. Their contract is 8 pages in length. It says that Winthrop's going to provide fire, police, and infrastructure, and they're going to give Winthrop money as a result. Currently, the schedule, which was done 20 years ago, is about $1 million a year. With some inflation and upgrades to that contract, it's about $2 million that the town actually receives. But the reality is we're providing the first responders for Bear Island. And there's no reason that they can't be a co-signer on this, and there's no reason that we can't bring this to the negotiating table when we're coming to them pretty much January 1st. The final portion of the fire station goes to really where the location's going to be. And that's really a sticking point for a lot of people. And it was hard for me too, because one of the things I think that makes Winthrop great is some of our old architecture. And that building is by far some of our best architecture that we have left in town. And I didn't like the idea that it could come down. But the reality is the offices are old, they're small. Whoever buys that building next, and it's been for sale before, they can take the building down. And they can put up what they want. It can be a new modern building. It can have meat market space, or it can't. It's up to them. And if that goes down, then the tenants of that building, they have nothing. They have whatever their leasehold interest is, and once their lease is up, it's up. So, well, I didn't like the fact that they were taking that building and that it was going to change that square for a different look. It's a building that is a perfect location for what we're considering putting there. It's at the top of a hill. If climate change is really the daunting issue of our day, the chances of a 100-year storm, and a 100-year storm is just the highest rainfall we can expect over the next 100 years on any given storm, if the waters do come up, and we're a town that is surrounded by water, if they do come up, that is probably the highest point that's accessible in town. And I think that's a really important factor for us to keep all of our life safety apparatuses there, a little bit on top of a hill, so that if we do need it, if we are in kind of that ground zero crisis mode, we're not digging it out of water in order to try to get at the equipment that we need for what would be a really...
Yeah, and you bring up a good point too, that the building, if you don't do this with the fire station, somebody's going to buy that building, so those people will be out of that building, could be out of that building. So, and I know from what I've heard, you guys, the town has been working on trying to make sure that these people are, have a place to go to currently.
Well, my discussions with Town Council President Lettieri have been what happens to these folks. And the reality is that every one of the tenants there will have suitable replacement at the same price they're paying now. In many instances, an upgrade over where they are now. So, I know the meat market was against it at first. They were somewhat blindsided. But over time, as this process has been explained to them, my understanding now is that they're happy about it. They're seeing that they're going to have a better lease for a longer period of time and a better location than where they are now. The office space upstairs, it's all replaceable in many respects, and one by one, these tenants are finding that there are other options out there, and the town is on the hook through the eminent domain process, is on the hook for finding a suitable replacement for all of their businesses.
Whereas a private business would not be.
Correct.
To come in there. So let's talk a little about any experience with municipal budgets?
No, I don't. I've run a small business for the last 20 years, a law office. So I'm very familiar with budgeting. I'm very familiar with the money in has to match money out. I'm familiar with what we can do to find new areas of revenue. I've been involved in single-family construction over the years as part of my practice. I've recently renovated, got renovation of a house during COVID. I've recently done
You and many people.
Yes, I did a build out of my new office space on the Somerset building, and so I am familiar with construction budgets and line item budgets, and I've certainly been following Winthrop's budgets over the year and the school budget and how that interplays. I'm familiar with grants and grant writing and why it's important for us to, as a town, find a way to get a good grant writer, because by and large, you know, if they cost us 50, they typically bring in tenfold, 500,000 in grants. If the grant writing department costs us 100,000, we can expect $1 million in grants. Those numbers aren't pulled out of the sky. Those are grant writer after grant writer that comes to municipalities. This is what they're able to provide us. So, you know, we're getting into the dollars and cents here of how to make this town work, and grants is going to be one way that we can do that. So, although I don't have direct experience in municipal financing, I understand how finance works. I understand how dollars and cents work, and I know that if we don't have the money and we need the money, we need to find inventive ways of getting the money.
Right. So let's talk a little about, you're in the council, you're elected to the council. How do you perceive your role related to the school district and the school budget?
I think it's an important role. One, we need to provide our school district more money. It's troubling to me, and part of the reason why I'm running is because we're in the bottom third of all school districts in the Commonwealth. And that's troubling for a lot of reasons. The biggest reason is we have great teachers. We have great buildings. They're not brand new, but they're pretty new.
They're pretty new.
As far as school buildings go. And we have great kids. I've coached my kids in Little League and lacrosse and soccer, and I see the parents down at the fields. They're involved with the kids. I see them at pickup. I see them constantly with their kids at these different events. And I know that they're invested in their kids' futures, and they're staying on top of it. So when this school bottom third issue came before me, I looked at, well, what is it? Is it just the formula? What are we missing? And what we're missing is a robust AP advanced placement program. We have virtually no foreign language program other than Spanish, where our math and our English scores, they're low for various reasons. But the biggest thing is we're dealing now with a situation where we're running out of space in our buildings. We're hearing things like pods might be needed. We're hearing things that class sizes could crest over 25 on average. And we need to find ways to get our school committee the money that they need so that they can pay our teachers. Our teachers' average salary is, I think, $76,000. Average for the Commonwealth is just shy of $100,000 per teacher. We're doing a great job in keeping our teachers and finding great teachers from year 1 to 6 in their careers, but we're losing them in 6 to 12, those very years that we really want to get these teachers in their prime teaching our kids. Many times we're losing them to other communities that simply can pay more. So I think the first line of defense is we need to come up with more money for the school committee, first and foremost. In addition, we got to give some direction to the school committee as much as we can. Now, the town council president sits on the school committee as a member. So he, in many ways, is the voice of the town council at these meetings. But, you know, if we want a foreign language program, for instance, or, for instance, if we want a music program, bringing back the ATC band is something I've heard 4 different times from complete different sections of Precinct 2, which isn't that big. But everyone wants the ATC band program back. That's something we can as a council, when we're giving the money and setting up the budgeting, so that the school board can make determinations of where their budget is going to be. As a town councilor, we can say, hey, we want the music program to be robust again, and we want to start building it back up. And that's one of the initiatives that as a town council we're asking you to do. Now, they may or may not do it, but if they're hearing it, we have a better chance of getting it in. And I really do think that music and the arts and sports is something that it just makes a better overall experience for all of these kids that go through our school system.
Well, it was my experience that got me through the school system personally. So the arts was what made me who I am today. So thank you on that. So there's been a lot of discussion, we're sticking with schools, about the old middle school. And I can't believe I'm still talking about the old middle school, but it's still there. And do you have a vision for that future site?
I do. I've had a vision for a lot of years since the new school was built, and that began its 8-year odyssey of remaining empty. We as a town, it costs us about $70,000 a year. So that's about $560,000 that we've wasted on that building just sitting idly. But it's not just the money that we've wasted. There's 10 years of people's lives that they live in this community and they didn't get any benefit from that very valuable piece of land that Dr. Ingalls gave us when they were dividing up the town 150, 200 years ago. And he donated this land to us with Ingleside Park. And the goal was for us to use it for public good, for us to enjoy it as a community. So I've always thought that the best use for that would be a world-class, first-class community center for our kids. Something that we could have basketball courts, we could have a pool, we could have a gym, we could have gymnastics, we could have room for the arts, we could have virtually anything we want. It's about a 2-acre site, a valuable 2-acre site. And with the rink staying put, because I think it's part of the fabric of this town, we should not touch that sheet of ice. We should build around it and use that as kind of the centerpiece of what it is that we're doing. But I think we should have very close to what's being proposed now. So what's being proposed now, as I understand it, is a rec house, a rec center, that would have 4 basketball courts. And those 4 basketball courts is what's going to drive revenue for the developer. Now, in addition to these 4 basketball courts, there's going to be other portions of this building that would be rented out. However, it will be rented out by this developer. But the true value to this developer is holding AAU tournaments and other things that could drive a significant amount of revenue for the developer, which would allow for the town to collect some revenue there. I have a couple of concerns. First concern is access. You can build the greatest building on the planet there. And if we don't have access as a community, what do we really have? We just have a giant building sitting largely unused during the week that the town has no access to. It does us no good. The second is this is a town that has no access to a thoroughfare. We are not on the list of places where leagues, hockey leagues and basketball leagues necessarily want to play. That they may come in for a tournament and leave, but as far as being the regular Saturday location for a league, Winthrop doesn't make the list because we're too difficult to get to. From virtually any location, we're a difficult place to get to. So I think that we need to be very concerned and we need to be in place as to where exactly we stand if this business fails. If this developer goes belly up, God forbid, the economy changes, the projections could be wrong. Well, is this building going to be tied up in bankruptcy court for 10 years? Is this building, are we going to be as a community behind a $20 million mortgage that is suddenly, sitting here, and we as a community who have to determine whether or not we want to pass a debt exclusion to buy this building back from the bank or from somebody else? Or are we able to negotiate that we're actually in first position, that we would have a super priority lien over this property, and any money borrowed on this property is after Winthrop. So Winthrop could be in a position where we would receive this building without any debt if the developer was to fail. Now, I'm not hoping anyone fails, but I'm concerned that if that happens, where we stand as a community. And the third part is what it's going to comprise of. We have some great businesses in town that would fit well in this, and certainly with procurement laws, we would need to put out RFPs and take the steps that we need to make sure that the use of the building would be something that we could design as a community, to create that citizens group like we did with the high school. I think there was 19 members. 4 of them were on the town council, and there was 15 members of the community that came in. And they weren't just members of the community handpicked. When the high school was built, the new high school was built, and I'm sure you know well, you found an architect, you found a finance person, you found some sports people, you found some arts people. You found all of the people that you needed so that you had a lot of the answers sitting in the room. And I think if we do that and work closely with a developer, there's no reason that we can't give the valuable space to that developer to do what they need to do with, but that we can get other 10,000 and 12,000 square foot boxes built that we could rent as a community. So whereas right now we're expecting maybe 150 to 200,000 to come in from this developer in annual rent, we could actually expand that and have other businesses under the portion that's built by this developer but is owned by the town, that the town could pull other significant rental income from those other boxes or units that would be there. You know, you could pull another $200,000-300,000 in rents if we develop this property properly.
Great. So let's go into another area about fees and water rates, because I know that water rates is always a hot item. And we always know when the water rates are coming out because you'll start to see the buzz or hear the buzz around town. And then recently they had additional fees when it came to the trash fee. How do you feel about fees in general, and also in regards to the water rates, what do you think, or how can you change those current rates to maybe help defray any additional increases?
So I think the average person, the average citizen doesn't want to be nickel and dimed. I think the trash fee in particular, the $160, I think a lot of people see it as a slap in the face. Here we pay our taxes, we do what we do to live in the community, and we get added on another $160. Now the average tax bill in Winthrop, I believe, is right around $6,000. So to add $160 to that doesn't seem like much. Now, it adds up to almost $1 million a year. But what we have to ask ourselves is how much of that $1 million a year is going into the administration of this trash program? Are we losing 20% of that in having the manpower to run this program? And that's a problem. I would like to see the trash fee go away. I don't think it's something we could do to our town manager in 1 year's time. I think it's something we would have to ease into maybe in year 2 or 3 so that the town isn't faced with $1 million shortfall. But the general aspect of fees, of user fees in the high school, I don't like. I don't like the concept that if a kid wants to go out to sport, they have to ask their father or mother for $500 so that they can go out for the team. It should just be automatic. They should be going out for the team because they want to play that sport. And the money shouldn't come into play. The kid shouldn't feel pressure because finances aren't there possibly. What was the other fee you were speaking of?
We're talking about the water rates.
The water rates. So the water rates is something that is really tough, given the fact that we have Deer Island in town. Our water rates are more than double the average of other communities like us. So the troubling part of that is our water is 1/3 of our bill, and our sewer is 2/3 of the bill. So part of when we negotiate with MWRA in for June of 2025, and again, this should start in January of 2024 to give us 18 months to negotiate this, is to really have a good hard talk with them about what we're paying for sewer as a community and as a town. This is all part of the negotiation. This is all part of what our demands are or what our requests are as a community. Remember, 20 years ago, when they were originally coming up with this agreement, we still had selectmen, I think Peter Gill signed the original agreement, they were supposed to barge in and out all of the chemicals, all of the waste. I don't think there's ever been a barge that's come in or out. We use our roads. And because we're using our roads, we have to have details in place.
The barge was fought off by, I believe it was the federal government, and they got involved in that whole thing, and because we were supposed to have the whole beach project through the barge as well, and that never happened. So we had to have everybody come through, because living right there on the beach, I remember that. Everybody came down, so yes.
Makes sense.
Right.
But I think now that we now know that there won't be a barge, I think when we come to the negotiating table, we need to think a little bit more about it and ask more that, look, we need infrastructure. We need police, fire to be taken care of in infrastructure. But we also need the general taxpayer and water user to get a break here. We shouldn't be at $25 for our rate where everyone else is at 11. And the reality is I think we have 12 water mains that still need to be replaced. They're popping all over the place. It's not even cold yet, and we're losing them. With the work that's being done over on Revere Street, when that water got shut off and the valve pressure went to 0, when it came back on, it spiked, it flooded our system, and we've had multiple breaks. But when we have these water main breaks, we're not replacing the full length. We're only doing a 20-foot section, and it's just a Band-Aid on it. And that's why our water rates are so high, because we have so many areas of town that have antiquated water pipes, and we need to replace many, many mains. I forget the number, but I think it's like 12 miles or something crazy of water mains for a 1.6 square mile town. That's an awful lot of water mains under the ground. And they're expensive and they're hard to do because it involves taking up the roads and really causing a lot of disruption when it happens. But I think there are ways to attack these water rates, and I think we do that by having a frank discussion with Deer Island. They're first and foremost who can help us deal with all of these things.
So I got a couple more questions. We still got some good time left here. If elected, you're one person out of a 9. And I think that that's important. So, but you have strategies, or you have initiatives that you want to get passed. What strategies do you use to try to convince your other members that this is the way to go?
So I served as a chairperson of the Board of Licensing, and during COVID, when that struck, we really had a bright light shined upon us with the outdoor dining having to be opened. And what we found in that situation was we needed to do something that no one had ever done before, because no one ever lived through a pandemic. The Spanish flu folks weren't sitting on our board. And we really were in a situation where we needed to design a process for approvals of tents and how the outdoor dining was going to work. And we needed to get the people approved in enough time that they could buy what they needed to buy so that they could all open by June 5th, when the governor was going to let us reopen our doors. And in doing that, the way I was able to kind of keep the board with me was by showing up prepared, by going to every location before we had the meeting and knowing the location, having the screenshots on my Zoom screen, because we weren't meeting, we were on Zoom, and letting the members know, and not letting them know, but having the members of the board go through the process and see that they weren't just wasting their time. That after the first meeting, and we got through maybe 5 restaurants, when I called for another meeting 2 days later, because we were on a very strong time crunch, there wasn't a feeling of, well, that's a waste of time tonight, why are we going to waste more time in 2 days? It was an understanding the importance of it, and I think it all starts with prep. When I was on the Ordinance Review Committee, I chaired that also this past year, and every meeting that I went to, I was fully prepared. I never would go to a meeting without knowing exactly what section we were going to discuss, reviewing the history of that there, and reviewing what ordinance or what portion of the charter, how it compared to other communities. For example, use variances. We're one of 12 communities with use variances. What that basically means is if you were to build a house and you had a hardship because of shape or topography or soil conditions, you could petition the Board of Zoning Board, and you could ask for a variance for front setback, say, that you need to put your house 5 feet from the lot line where 20 feet is a zoning bylaw, zoning ordinance. And with a 4 out of 5 vote, our ZBA can sign off on that, and you can build your house closer to the street. What a use variance is, however, is unique. What that says is you live here, and next door to you is a big, beautiful Victorian that they've moved out of, and the family's left, and the developer buys it. And they don't want a single family anymore, they want a 6-family, because 6 condo units have good value, and they can get their square footage way, way up. A use variance allows that same group of people to make a decision on whether or not there can be a change of use. Now, if use variances didn't exist, for example, you would go to the planning board for a recommendation, and then you would go to the town council, a body of elected, transparent, open meeting that everyone can see every other Tuesday, and you would ask them to change the zoning of that parcel. It's a big difference. So when we were going through that process in the Ordinance Review Committee, what I was able to do was I was able to look at, well, who else has these? What other towns? And we learned that Bridgewater was getting rid of theirs. Well, why? Why was Bridgewater singling this issue out? And by doing that, I was prepared and able to share that preparedness with other members of the board. And I think it helps move our initiatives through, and I would take that same approach to the town council if elected.
Great. So my last question to you is, it's kind of a little more personal for you on that. Give me 3 words that best describe you and why.
I would say dedicated, focused, and hardworking. I'm hardworking by necessity. I have 3 kids. I'm a self-employed. I have no choice but to work hard. I have people relying on me, both clients and family, and as a result, hard work is something that since I started as a busboy at age 15, I feel that I put my best effort forward every day. Dedication, I'm dedicated to this town. I love this town. I think it's a great place. I think it's a unique place. I think we have amazing beaches. We have amazing restaurant community. We have a lot going for us. We also have some pretty tough neighbors. Massport, 1/3 of their runways are in Winthrop. A lot of those are, frankly, in Precinct 2. And I think it's something that we really need to have a good, hard talk with Massport also. Their contract also is up in June of 2025, and that will be on part of the negotiation come January 2024. So I think dedicated to the town is certainly there, and focused. I have no choice but to be focused on what I do. And many times, when I was renovating my house, I was there morning. I had an afternoon meeting with the contractors, and I was back there at night to check and see what was done, walking around with my iPhone flashlight, preparing for the next day. And when I have a task that we can focus on, for example, the old middle school project, once that foundation is in place and we're starting to discuss what the actual project will look like, I'll be focused on getting a plan of attack in place, and piece by piece, taking a step and moving the ball forward every day a little bit, so that we can get shovels in the ground within a 2-year period.
Thank you, Mark. So we've got a couple of seconds here. You want to just tell everybody why closing out?
Sure. Thank you for listening and watching. I'm very interested in serving as Precinct 2's Town Council representative. And I'm committed to this town, and I hope I can earn your vote on November 7th.
So I want to thank you all for watching our 3 candidates. I want to remind everybody that Election Day is Tuesday, November 7th. Please make sure you get out and vote. Also, myself and Eric Gaynor will be doing a show on election night starting at 7:30. We hope that you will tune in and have a good day. Thank you.